Yes, we are. Okay, great. I'd like to call the Whatcom County Public Utility District Number 1 meeting to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's get on to our agenda. Are there any revisions or changes to the agenda?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. A second?
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So let's move on to the consent agenda. We've got 3 meeting minutes to approve. And that's this special meeting of September 11th, the regular meeting of September 12th, and the special meeting of September 19th. And of course, the claims for today, September 26th.
I did have a few questions about the claims. Can I jump into the,
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I was wondering, I noticed that Schmelik Sitkin Davis, it's higher, a lot higher than usual, 8,000 for general. I was just wondering what.
Well, if I may, yeah,
Okay.
we've asked them to do a lot of work related to the Grandview land expansion and
Okay.
potential condemnation.
Okay,
So that's something that's kind of out of the ordinary,
Okay.
like not every month, but
Okay.
when it happens, it's lumpy.
okay. I
think we had to go through the master lease as well for the broadband
Mhm.
and made drafted that
Okay,
as well.
Okay.
And then there was the ongoing water rates
okay,
related things.
Well,
Okay.
and we've also asked you to review all of the potential service documents for fiber lease and
Yeah, that was the master lease. We haven't begun the review of all of the water agreements, and that's kind of the next in line. So you'll see some other
okay.
increases.
I know you break them out by broadband, water, and I just saw general was it was 8,000, which is much bigger than you normally have. So I just.
I'd have to go back and
Okay.
look at that. I
Okay,
wasn't prepared today.
Okay.
yeah, when I went and signed off on everything, it was, yes, I remember that, we did that.
okay,
And
okay. Holland and Hart, that last bit came through for 4,000, but we've decided
Yeah,
no longer.
Yeah, we finished that through
Okay.
and we said, yes, go ahead and finish through the end of the last month. I think it was August. And so that cycle of billing should come through this month, but they ended their work.
Okay. And then.
They're on call for us.
And then just this last one, because I know when the Northwest River Partners thing kind of went through, I'm now looking at things like annual subscriptions and that was that one for Tenable.
Yeah, so that's one of our cybersecurity.
Okay, I figured that was it.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Okay, I just didn't know. what
So,
it was.
yeah, to the benefit of the commissioners, I also last week raised some questions about this understanding that Tenable and our approach in cybersecurity is something we want to be careful about talking about in public meetings. But anything we spend money on, the commission should be aware of.
Mhm.
So it would be helpful for me to understand either in public or executive session, as is appropriate, the infrastructure we have and the resources we allocate to cybersecurity, obviously, as it is a important concern.
Well, so let
In terms
me,
of safety and security.
there's a couple of ways we can approach this. If the other commissioners are interested in a briefing on our cybersecurity posture, I'd be happy to do that in executive session. If you're not interested in the details of that, Atul, you and I can do it.
Yeah.
So it just, if both of you are interested, then we'll do an update on our whole cybersecurity posture in an executive session. It'll be relatively quick, but we
I'd
can
be
do that.
interested in doing that in executive session.
I mean,
Sure, maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's not
I'm not-
necessary, but
it's not, I'm glad you're really, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, we'll do
A quick one.
an
And-
overview, and then if you've got more specific
Then
issues,
we'll follow.
because, yeah,
Okay. And just so everyone knows, I just feel like with these claims questions, to me, sometimes. If you guys don't want to hear the answers to the questions, I can just try to do it all offline, but
No,
I think we all benefit. from
I do benefit.
understanding This is our only time to look under the hood for how money is moving around.
Yep.
So, with that, I'll make a motion.
The two other things that I think on our bill,
Yeah.
just so you're aware, I did a memo for Chris.
Yeah.
Two memos that came out. There were, one was capital facility planning and integrating with the county comp plan, what our recommendations would be to the district in terms of your capital facility plan for electrical, broadband, water infrastructure to feed into the county comprehensive plan, particularly around planning for your services to Cherry Point. And I can do an update, or we can share that memo with the commission. And then the other one was finalizing the memo on utilizations of electrical co-ops for acquisition of BPA.
Oh, okay.
So those
forgot
were,
about
those
I would
both
love to
dropped,
see that.
both dropped into the general category.
Okay, okay. Cool.
Yeah, and those, John, why don't you go ahead and just forward those
Will do.
directly, and then, don't discuss them amongst yourselves, and if we need to talk about it, we'll go into executive session.
Okay.
Review them.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda unless there's more questions.
No, I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So let's move on to public comment. We have folks online. I don't think we have any public commenters in the room. No, it looks like there's no public comment. There's a second public comment period at the end of the meeting, so feel free to comment at the end if you choose. Let's move on to the general manager's report.
So, just real quickly, I'm gonna talk to you guys in executive session about a whole number of issues. So the bulk of my report will be there. Just to let you know, I will be over in Squim for part of the Water Commission meeting, and then I'll be back by about noon on Friday. And I've got a meeting with the county on the Watershed Management Board, and then we've got a meeting with Ralph set up at about 3. And then I'm going to be on vacation next week, so I will be back for our next commission meeting.
What's on the agenda for the Watershed Management Board this time?
Oh, it's a big agenda, but this is, there's been a whole number of issues that have been suggested for forwarding to the actual management board by the Ag Water Board. And we're going to be talking about all of those issues, plus teeing up the rest of this year's work plan and the 2024, 5, and 6 work plan for the Watershed Management Board. So it's all those issues.
So what will be, is there anything that PUD will be quote unquote voting on this Friday, or will you be approving the 5-year work
No,
plan?
because there may be some additional tinkering on that, but we've already approved moving that on to the larger Watershed Management Board, which meets week after next. I forget when the next one is, but that's the big board. Where
so
this is the local caucus. I'm sorry.
So
It's
this is
not-
the
not
watershed, this is a planning, or is this Watershed Management Team?
This is the local caucus of the Watershed Management Board. If you remember, the Watershed Management Board is split into 2 halves, the fish half, the in-stream and out-of-stream. The local government is the out-of-stream, and then those come together and.
So the meeting that Jamie goes to is the following week.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think it's next week.
I don't think it's
like-
next week either.
It's like the 3rd week in October. It's out there a little bit. But basically, that's where the 5-year work plan, and then there's a grant approval that's going to be forwarded where we've all had a look at it, and we agree that this is where the next grant, should we get any additional funding, should go.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the general manager's report?
No, but you can go to those meetings. The big meeting. the
No, I'm just
watershed-
making sure that, like, okay, because there's water workshop this week,
Yeah,
I wanted to make sure that, since Chris and I will be discussing water for a couple of days, make sure that whatever comes out of that is relevant and synced with whatever we're doing.
Okay.
And I think in the water workshop, there are a number of sessions that are hosted by Bill Clark, or he's the presenter.
That's gonna be technically last week was water week for the community, but this is gonna be water week for us.
Right. And the only one I'll miss is the one that he chairs on Friday morning, and that's the integration of the tribal water rights with local water rights. And I'm not gonna say I'm an expert on that, but I'm
Well, I'll enjoy that, yeah.
You will, and I'm at the point where I recognize those are issues where I need to get somebody who knows what they're talking about to the table. So,
Yeah, and I was gonna mention this to the commission, in my commission report, but since it came up, I am also going to the water workshop.
Good.
That's great.
So, let's move on to old business then. So the first thing under old business is the broadband program update.
hi, Andrew.
Good morning, Chris, commissioners, John. I'll just dive right in here. First off, good to see everyone. Lots going on the broadband front. So stop me at any time if you have any questions. But to begin, we checked in with our contact at the state broadband office, and they got back to us early this morning, letting us know that they've sent out our contract to be reviewed by a commerce budget analyst. And they basically just look at the final dollar amount, make sure it all looks good. Once they approve, it gets automatically sent to us here. So it does sound like our contract is going to be quickly forthcoming. So we're really excited about that development because we worked with them early in September, I think September 1st, to finalize our scope for the contract. And that was sent back September 1. And so we were kind of wondering, what's going on. And so when we checked in, they immediately got back to us, just within less than a day, and let us know it's moving, and that they had sent that out for final review yesterday. So things are moving there. The matching dollars contract with the county was sent back, I believe, early last week for the council to review and approve for our $350,000 matching dollars to match the state broadband office grant. And so thank you to John, legal team, for their help, and of course Chris for putting that contract together and getting that out the door within their timeline. And then we also have the telecom franchise with the county that we're working on developing now. So working with legal, thanks John for your help working through that. Point Roberts Advisory Committee, they had a check-in last week during their regular meeting just to get the pulse of the community. There's been some other ideas floating around, some faster ways they could improve broadband on the point, but they had confirmed that the committee and the community would like to pursue and support the PUD's broadband project, which is fiber to the premise, as you know. So we're excited. We have continued buy-in and support from the community to move forward. And kind of last on the broadband focus is staff put together, both at the PUD and the Port of Bellingham, a joint press release, which is just a high-level update on the PUD's project and the Port's multiple projects around the county, just because we've been hearing some communications happening in the community that may not be accurate. So we thought we'd put together some information that comes directly from the source about our projects. So that should be on our website this week, and I believe it may already be on the Port's website as well. So we'll make sure that the commission gets a copy of that as well.
Well, the issue there is Rob Fix and I are going to sign that, and I haven't signed it yet. So hopefully the Port doesn't have it up there.
Okay. Sorry.
And to my knowledge, Rob hasn't signed it either. So we just got everything kind of cleared through everybody late last week.
And when you said website, do you also mean Facebook?
We'll put a note on Facebook directing people to the website.
Okay. Putting a photograph in it. People like pictures.
We'll have that all figured.
Okay.
I don't have any questions for Andrew specifically, but talking about broadband reminded me of something, and that's that Kaylee Galloway sent all of the commissioners, I think, and you, Chris, a draft of a resolution, and she was seeking support on that. And I was wondering, were we going to signal support or not, no support as a commission, or was that something we wanted, people wanted to look at
Kaylee
individually?
communicated to me that she would like support of the commission when it gets to its final form. And I think I'm not going to try to speak for Kaylee, but say that she's been trying to get to a final form, and there might be one last week.
Okay.
On that final form, but I think she's looking, to answer your question, she's looking for commission support.
Yeah, I talked to her about it too, and a little while ago, and I also thought she might be waiting until next year to introduce the resolution.
Hmm.
Because she thinks maybe she'd get a little bit more support. And that there was, one piece of the resolution is, yeah, so that, but that she would reach, and she also did say if we could, as a commission, put a letter together when she's ready to introduce it, it would be helpful.
So I will say, Andrew and I have worked with, Kaylee, not really extensively, but dozens of hours over the last year and a half. And, what she's ended up with in her resolution, there's nothing in it we don't like, and a lot of things in it we do like. So, and then an awful lot that has nothing to do with us at all. And so my recommendation would be, unless it changes really substantially, this is one that you could easily support. It's kind of all good. And it really brings Whatcom County into the 21st century as far as this type of ordinance. It's a good effort, and we gave Kaylee a lot of input, and she really listened to us, and and was she was able to distinguish the stuff that coming from us that okay, that's nice, we get that, that's not part of this ordinance, and it's not there. And then the stuff that was really important, and she put that in there. We're very happy with the result.
Oh, here's something I drafted in August 31st after talking to her, which is that we could take her draft and we could say, we support the county getting more involved in broadband and support this resolution. Although we understand that this resolution is still evolving, we will also continue to support the county in their broadband efforts as partners. Countywide access to affordable internet will not be possible without county policy like this resolution. So we could send that right now, but like I said, she doesn't know when she's going to introduce it.
Well, and it sounds to me like the three of you are of like mind. And one thing you could do is say, yeah, this all sounds good. Chris, why don't you reach out to Kaylee and tell her that we support it? And that would be,
yeah.
and that as soon as they get it in a final form, we'll give her something in writing to support it.
Yeah, as far as the politics of it, though, I think sending something like that to the full council is what would actually help her, not us just saying, oh, we support your resolution. It'd be something like an email coming from you with the language I just read saying,
if you want to forward that to me,
draft policy.
You want to reread the language?
I mean, yeah, this was very, I said, we support the county getting more involved in broadband and support this resolution, although we also understand that this resolution is still evolving. We will also continue to support the county and their broadband efforts as partners. Countywide access to affordable internet will not be possible without county policies like this resolution.
I suppose that something like that would be fine to send now, but it sounds like she's gonna need probably more push.
Yeah, she'll need an official
I think-
endorsement.
We'll
Yeah.
probably need to actually
Be
show up
there.
at a meeting.
Sure.
And provide support.
Yeah.
Somehow.
I'm on board with that, with that language.
Me too.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't I?
and I think it's
forward
very
it
good
you?
to do it now like that,
Yeah,
because then it'll also communicate that there's more communication is coming.
And because the three of you have agreed, you don't need to go through me on it. I'm fine with you just going ahead and forwarding that to Kaylee directly.
And copying or.
Yeah, and copy the rest of
to
us.
The county council as a whole,
If you think it's more effective, I can send it to the county council and Kaylee.
or copy Chris, actually.
copy Chris and the whole county council.
Yeah, however you want to, but be getting the message to them.
Yeah, the issue is, does it come from you or come from me? I think since the three of you are of like mind, you've talked about it in a public meeting, you're okay to send that directly.
Yeah.
Or you can ask me to send it on your behalf. Either way is fine.
Well, I mean, maybe since all three of us have agreed, you could send it, Chris, and just
Okay.
say, today in our commission meeting, we discussed this draft broadband resolution, and here's my commissioner's statement.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then you can copy all three of us.
Mhm.
Okay.
That way all three of us can.
Okay, I'll forward my language to you right now.
Okay, I'll take care of that first thing this afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will in my commissioner report talk about another broadband item, having to do with, NoNet and their presentation at the telecom meeting. But right now, while we're in the broadband program update, I would like to just mention that we are probably aware that the broadband office has issued a 5-year plan, and associated with, BEAD funding and, as well. And, we'll put a coordinated response on that. Chris, you suggested that you didn't think there's anything special that Whatcom PUD should do on the subject. I just want to share my personal perspective on the 5-year plan. I notice that at the state level, other PUDs and at this PUD, the way we count underserved is creates a lot of questions for me. If you look at the tally of underserved, it's an order of magnitude less than the unserved at Whatcom County and at pretty much every other reporting, because I looked at the work plan and it showed it for other counties as well. And that somehow intuitively doesn't work for me, doesn't make sense to me. I don't accept that the underserved are an order of magnitude fewer than the unserved. So what could be the cause of that? It could be partially the way we collect data to begin with. You remember some years ago, I was on a campaign to change the way we test. That didn't happen. But there's other reasons, perhaps. I think Chris helped me with understanding one aspect of why it's being counted as a low number, and that it shows what could be done with physical infrastructure, but the barrier may be economics, for example. So I'm on a quest to understand what creates, and I don't understand enough about it. So I will be over the next few months trying to figure out what is the gap. Why is underserved such a low number in the reporting regime?
So just as a reminder to the commission, I did an analysis of the state's 5-year plan and sent you a synopsis of my comments up front about a month ago, I think. And so just highlights, the 5-year plan includes the possibility of submitting mid-mile projects as part of this. It also includes the possibility of hybrid solutions, which are solutions where you go to a certain point with fiber and then you use direct wireless at the end. And that, in my opinion, would be extremely useful in remote mountainous areas where, to get the last 4 or 5 homes, you've got to run miles of fiber.
Mhm.
Instead, you can put a single antenna up and be done with it and have some decent connectivity. So, there's a lot to like in this. To Commissioner Deshmani's point, the source data for the served, unserved, and underserved is the FCC data. And unless that's been contested by somebody, it's whatever the ISPs have submitted. So we know that there are errors in that. We know, for instance, we know of a couple of situations where gig symmetric has been claimed by the ISPs and there is no internet there at all. And we know that. So there's some errors. Then there's a significant subset where an ISP provides gig service if people want to pay for it, and they don't. And so they may be sitting there with 25.3 or poorer, and because gig service symmetric costs $150 a month or some other number, they just choose not to do that. So, there's one where if they're at 25.3, they don't meet the state's definition of broadband for 2027, which is 150 meg symmetric. But it's by choice and it's by economic choice. So, you see, you've got a puzzle.
I know, I get it. I get what you're saying. And I also think it's crap.
Well, no, it's a fact. I mean, that's how the FCC
I
data was
I
established.
don't understand why they're like, if you can't afford your internet, but they're providing it to you, it seems like from an equity perspective, you're still unserved.
That's not what this is.
Or underserved.
Or
No,
underserved, yeah.
no. This is where you have people who do not qualify for assistance because they make too much money and they refuse to pay whatever the price is for the available gig internet service. It's not the ACP folks.
Okay,
It's not that.
okay.
That's a different issue.
But-
And
but
the
let's be
ACP
clear.
right now we have is I mean, it's something like a 10 or a 20% uptake. So there's another problem out there. A lot of the folks that are eligible for this assistance are not,
We're not taking that.
they're not. And, you know, that's a whole other issue that frankly, I haven't got my head around.
So this is just meant to be an update item on our agenda, so I just want to, I'm sorry to kind of, but it was informational to talk about the 5-year plan. But if I may make a concluding, or not to shut off the conversation, but just that what we started with and are still on is a dedicated effort to deal with uncertainty, and I'm happy about that. And even our BEAD current plan is all about that. But I see that question repeatedly getting begged about what to do about people that will be underserved. And and I agree with this position, that when you attack the unserved, you also do make a dent in the underserved. I believe that. I agree with them. However, as time goes on, we're going to have to get smarter as a commission. Not that we're not smart already about this, but we're going to have to keep getting smarter about it and start figuring out how to deal with some of the value judgments of connectivity. Some of the more subtle issues, like what is too much of an upcharge for gig service from our perspective, or because the city is going to have to make those kinds of decisions, the county, and they're going to look to us for guidance on those types of issues, in my opinion. So I'm just saying, as time goes on, where we get involved, how we get involved is going to become more and more nuanced and more complex. That's my thought.
So if I may, on the 5-year plan,
Yeah.
it's a big improvement on kind of where the state has been going, and it fixes a lot of the problems, and it takes advantage of really leveraging the $1.23 billion that's going to come to Washington State over the next 5 years. So it's got nothing to do with the past WSBO plans. It's a completely new effort, and I think it's a big step in the right direction. I also think that our input on it would be minimal. Waputa's got some legitimate process-oriented things that they're looking at, and Kitsap has been leading the way on that. And I think that we don't need to make any separate comment on it. I wouldn't recommend that.
Good, great. Anything else, Andrew?
No, not from me. Thank you for your support.
I was just
Thank
gonna
you.
add that I haven't debriefed Chris on this, but I did speak with Andrew this morning. That closer on the franchises, looking at the franchise the county delivered, it looks to me like it's an industry-based franchise that their folks from the industry just push out. They've used in other jurisdictions. We spent some time negotiating water and electrical franchises with the county about 10 years ago. Given our role as a municipal entity and the broad service throughout the county, there's just subtle things in the industry-based franchise. It's 10 years, not 25. There's a performance bond requirement, little things throughout that I think don't really fit, given what I think the relations might be on broadband, on that we're not an end user service provider. So we are going to take a little bit of time to go back to the legal counsel of the county to talk to them about their approach on these franchises. I think they're just pushing out boilerplate from the industry, and see if we can't get them to go back to the format the form requirements for infrastructure that we had with our water and electrical facilities.
So if I may, John, Andrew and I had a meeting with the county that was pushing this stuff out, and your characterization is exactly correct. They don't have a template where they say, oh, here's our franchise agreement. And all they did was they sent the latest one they negotiated with a telecom. And so our response back to John was, well, we got some issues with this. What do you think? And now you've heard that response back. So
I just want to let you know where we're going. And I hadn't debriefed Chris yet, but I did Andrew this morning. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's it for broadband.
Okay, so let's move on to adjudication. Is that you, John? I looked at you.
Yeah, I know, I saw that. So I guess we'll have some discussion executive session on this. The updates I would have are we're working, and we'll talk about this on a response on policy 2030, the draft policy. There is a PUD water workshop. I was hoping to attend some of that. I still may be able to run over. I'll be in that area, but I'm not sure if I'll make some of it. We had tentatively talked about a Tupper Mac Wells doing a meeting with you in early October, a long workshop. And Chris and I discussed it, given the discussion we had regarding HDR, the background where we're going, the updates we've been providing you. I'm not sure if you wanted to devote that time now, given the other things you have going on, or if you wanted to defer that. We thought if you wanted to proceed, we'd probably look at maybe the 24th of October. But we weren't sure if you felt the need to have a full water workshop at this point, given everything else around water that's been going on in the updates you've received on the adjudication. We can defer it till maybe, it could be February, March might be a good time right before they file the adjudication. But we had talked to Tupper Mac Wells, having them come up. And maybe, but we wondered if it was necessary.
Yeah, and just one item for you guys to think about. The date for the adjudication keeps rolling. But the last 2 months or so, it's been consistent. They're talking about April for filing. So that hasn't moved in a couple of months, and maybe they've got staff on board and they've got a work plan to get there. I'm hopeful, yeah, because sooner or later they have to file. And I think as we get closer to April and it continues to not change, it'll be a lot more certain. And that'd be a really good time to get a detailed update for you guys.
The only problem that I have with maybe waiting and doing it, in like March is that we usually are down in Olympia for the legislative. It's just a lot during that time. Do you know what I mean? So if we're going to do that, I would prefer to do it at some point in 2023. If that makes sense. Because I want to do it before filing, but in January, February, March, there will be a lot going on.
I also think one benefit of doing it in late October is, adjudication related costs are going to be a huge part of our budget.
Yeah.
So, I think having some face time with them and really, and I think also sort of exploring what this is gonna, kind of what some of our different options are in terms of how we approach adjudication from many different lenses, including the budget impacts. That would just be one other reason. And I also agree that legislative session makes everything feel a little bit
That's a
nuts.
great point. I agree with that completely.
Well, then let's look at the 24th. I know for Matt Wells, that was preferred to him when I interacted with him yesterday.
When is our late October?
It's a regular meeting.
So we would just tack that on to our regular.
We'd probably do an executive session and be a long executive session.
Okay.
Okay, so will you come back with us with the proposed timeline, or are we?
We'll set it for the 24th.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I would tell you that I think, a lot of the policy strategic direction is probably going to be candidly led by Chris and I, with the input and shared discussions with the Tupper Mac Wells team, but they're getting the nitty gritty on the water right and how to prove validity and the rest, and helping in being the touchstone points on the experts into the greater detail on with the in-stream flow and the conditions issues. But I think, that Chris and I have tried to help guide them of where the general policy direction and options that we see with coming up with the commission. So,
The only thing I have an Energy Northwest meeting the next day, so I haven't decided if I'm gonna travel to the Tri-Cities, but if I am traveling, I would probably need to have a hard stop at least noon, because it's a full afternoon of driving to Richland, so. But I'll let you guys know, but I think we'd probably be done by noon.
we can make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing in the regular session there, I believe, and Annette, you can chime in, that's our first formal budget presentation, you guys.
Right.
So you'll have that in the new business part of the session, the old business. I'm not sure where we put it, but that'll be in the public part of the session where we daylight the proposed budget and you get your first peek at it.
So, is there anything else under the adjudication?
Just tell you that I'm doing a presentation on Thursday in Seattle at the American Water Resources Washington Board. I was asked to come down and give a perspective on NUCSAC adjudication, the barriers and opportunities for settlement, the local perspective on the adjudication. I've got about an 8-slide presentation. Trying to bring some levity. My approach is, how would you bring the and Major League Baseball owners and all the players to a collective bargaining agreement without a strike? So, it's not dissimilar. So,
And of course, we'll be talking a little bit about water policy in the executive session.
yeah, absolutely. We are.
Okay, so let's move on to new business. I think we have a cancellation of a warrant. Tracy's gonna handle that.
Yeah. Good morning. This is just a simple, the company let us know they didn't receive the check. And so we're canceling the old one and reissuing a new one, and the reissuance is on these claims.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 833.
I'll second.
There's a motion, a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Tracy. Let's move on to the next item, which is a conversation that we discussed at our last regular meeting. The need to set some priorities from the strategic plan for the PUD, for the general manager. So maybe it'd be helpful for us to. You got the copy? Good.
I have a copy. Do you need a copy? Jamie's got one too. He's gone through all the ones over there.
Okay.
And just to, the prioritization is to help inform the budget. Among other things.
Well, and it helps staff keep straight where we should focus our time and effort.
Mhm.
You know, to the extent we don't have infinite bandwidth to do all things, there's a point where you have to choose what to point at.
Does anybody want to?
How are we gonna do this? Did everybody like bring something to reveal?
I did, you know
do.
what, in thinking about the subject, I apologize a little bit to say that when I think about what the top priority is from my perspective, it's actually not one of the strategies explicit that we have listed here. It's staffing.
Running the current utility. That's good.
And what I mean by that is to create the capacity that supports growth for the utility. Because what we're talking about to some degree in broadband, but to a larger degree on the energy front, is growth. And not that we're not taking good steps in that direction, but if I have to identify from my perspective, the top priority is really doing an excellent job of recruiting and hiring more talent based on the holes that we've already identified. We need to fill. So that's my opening thought.
In a way, I agree with that. Maybe not so much just staffing, but like my priority when looking at this and thinking about previous meetings and where we're going, but it's running the current utility. I feel like we're facing a number of significant sort of hurdles, you know, with drought in Whatcom County, with, you know, trying to become a player in broadband. But at the end of the day, we're a water utility, and like we've got rate issues and problems with the failing water system at Grandview. And so running the current utility is certainly a priority, but I don't know if that just goes without saying, you know, that running the current utility should be a priority.
Well, I mean, I think that was sort of why, I guess originally we sort of did try to prioritize these, and it's why customer service is first. Which I think is focused on our current customers. Well, I did come up with 3
Great.
that are from the current strategic plan, follow the rule. So, well, sort of, I mean, I would say that for me, it's under clean and renewable energy, it's strategy 2. Undertake a demonstration project of the use of clean and renewable energy technologies. And I would love like 50 to 100 megawatt demonstration project. Ideally, Chris.
No, I would too.
And I could actually say if I could pick that one 3 times, if I had to prioritize my top 3, I might just do that 3 times in a row. I don't know if that's breaking the rules. Sounds like we don't actually have rules. for the exercise, so, but I think that I'm feeling that way just because of getting to have a little bit of closer exposure to understanding, so much of my background on energy is on demand side, but understanding what has to happen on supply side right now is eye-opening, and it's a huge undertaking. It's something that our PUD has never done. And I think that if we could pull off building a significant carbon-free baseload resource, it would be an enormous win for our community and for climate. And as we've discussed, it's really a drop in the bucket when you think about what's happening worldwide with carbon emissions. But I mean, maybe I'm naive, but I still do think that these local wins and efforts matter. And I mean, 50 megawatts is getting up there, right? Like that's a significant source of carbon-free energy if we could do that. So it's a tool. You and I've been talking about this for a long time. Like, how do we do something really significant? And it feels like this geothermal opportunity is maybe that, as Chris has said, there's a million different off ramps and ways that it could go wrong or just not happen. But I'd say that. And then but then if I wasn't allowed to just pick one 3 times, I'd say that supporting the water rights settlement effort would be number 2 for me. I'd really prefer that we not do, decades of legal battles with adjudication. So I know that it's a big long shot. It's a big one, but I think our community would benefit a lot from a settlement where we could, come together on something. And then the last one for me, if I had to just pick 3 would be, we called it the plan of finance. That was the term Jim Darling came up for broadband, but really figuring out how do we make sure there's kind of an option for everyone in the county that doesn't have the broadband that they need. But again, I'd say really for me, I think that it's going to take a huge amount of effort with our tiny staff to do something big in the energy space while continuing to do what we're already doing. So I don't know, maybe I would just pick strategy RE2 3 times.
So, if you want to go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to, so because I said that I want to, prioritize running the current utility, I did think of other things on here that I would like to prioritize. But I think most of those, I don't think all of those things for me are on the water side. Not that there's anything wrong with pursuing energy, we certainly can do that. I just think in this moment, we're going through adjudication, we're in the middle of a drought. I think that also not coming from an energy background, and also being on the watershed board probably gives me a different perspective. So with those things in mind, facing drought and then looking at, models that show the Nooksack River shed being in serious danger in the next, 50 years. A couple of the things that were important to me were exploring alternative sources of water during low flow conditions, and maybe even expanding on that, like a foster fix for, when we have low flow conditions. That's a high priority for me, highest priority for me. Also strategy WR3, utilizing PUD water rights to enable solutions for the benefit of the community. That kind of plays into the water association support too, because I see them as really connected, even though they're separate strategies, because that's how we were in this moment when we were having drought. That's how we were enabling solutions, was through our partnership with water associations. But we also I had a number of people that were like individuals that were reaching out to me during drought, and I passed some people, I think, off to Chris,
Yep.
that had dry wells. So strategy WR3 and strategy WS2 were really important to me moving forward. That's all.
And I also did dig deeper, and I love everything that you guys have said, but so if I have to pick my top three, it would be things associated, ironically, even though I've been so involved with supply, it's ironically, it's about improving the electrical distribution infrastructure, starting from Cherry Point and going up to the Lummi Peninsula. And not explicitly Cherry Point, I don't know exactly the names of what neighborhoods, if you know what I mean, but I'm talking about the substation. And going out to the peninsula. And the reason is because I really think that it would be beneficial for the PUD to bite off a smaller chunk when it comes as a subject of municipalization than a big chunk all at once. There's lots of attractiveness to me to at the same time support economic development on the both the peninsula and in that rough area that connects to the reservation in the heavy industrial zone. So I just feel like there's some we can really be an enabler for growth for the county, a good growth, good clean industry kind of growth while developing infrastructure and distribution to a good chunk of the county, and access clean energy, even if we don't develop, because of the advantage of a potential tribal energy corporation being able to getting the tier 1 power from Bonneville. So I'm attracted to that idea, and regarding water, I think you guys covered the bases. The importance of a settlement and then the foster fix, they both have to happen together. Settlement requires a foster fix. So I'll just mention one other thing is regarding broadband. I just feel like we have to figure out what's doable and what's real for the community. I just think that while we're knocking some things down as far as unserved, I think the community is going to get, and certainly many of our elected leaders are demonstrating boredom with the subject of broadband at the city and the county. They prefer to not be engaged on the issue. But Chris, you don't exactly agree with this statement, but so I'll modify it. I said the term, we've been doing telecom wrong for 100 years. And you don't agree with that, so I'll change it. We've been doing telecom wrong for 50 years. So my point is that it's infrastructure, and we don't treat it like it's our infrastructure. We let the private sector own our way of communicating with each other exclusively with very poor oversight and regulation. So it's to improve the service to the public, which many other countries have done incredibly well, which have huge infrastructure advantages over us domestically. We're not going to fix that overnight. We have all kinds of legacy infrastructure, but it seems that if the PUD commission doesn't develop a long-term policy and plans that are gonna last for decades, we're not gonna get there. So I would like us to continue to mature our broadband efforts so that we are developing plans for the community, not just for ourselves, kind of like what we do on the we overreach on water, we can overreach on broadband too. To help guide our community to a long-term plan to develop infrastructure systematically. And, helping the city, helping the county, helping our the port, because we're gonna run out of energy in Brook if we don't recognize it's a long haul. There's not gonna be easy wins, is what I'm saying. It's gonna take a long, protracted, patient effort. So those are my three.
Do you guys like input from staff?
Yeah.
And so when I say staff, I gotta be fair. I haven't talked to any of the staff about this. This is my input. So I color outside the lines. There are 4 main buckets of work as I see it, and I rank them. It doesn't mean that anything is unimportant. It just means do this first. And for me, running the utility is first. It's our fiduciary responsibility. It's where all the money comes from to do all this other stuff we're talking about. Frankly, our customers are the reason why we were created in the first place. And so we need to take care of that. That includes the adjudication, because I think, Commissioner Arnett, you're exactly correct that if we nail some kind of, maybe it was Commissioner Grant, we nail some kind of solution early in adjudication and not go the full 10 years, it's going to not only be a better solution because it'll be cooperatively framed, it's going to be a better solution because we will spend a heck of a lot less to get there. And I think that's the right answer in the long run. And I think it'll allow us opportunities to solve or at least make big dents in flooding problems, in water shortage problems, in water allocation problems. It'll give us opportunities to have foster fixes and all that kind of stuff. So when I look at running the existing utility, I include the adjudication. The second thing I look at is power supply. And for all the reasons we've talked about and more, if we can bootstrap our power supply, and the model to think about here, and Commissioner Grant, I got to thank you because I wasn't thinking about this and you kind of boxed me in and I took a step back. The model to look at is Chelan. And, 50, 60, 70 years ago, they built giant dams to serve a tiny utility. And they ended up selling the power on the market to finance all of the other good stuff that they've been able to do. That's a good model. Now, you think about municipalization in the long run, you think about just offsetting carbon in the county. That's how you get there. And I also agree with Commissioner Grant that in terms of a big chunk, it looks like, and I only focus on non-carbon sources, it really looks like geothermal is our best bet. But that's a heavy lift. Also associated with power supply is transmission. Today in executive session, I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on where we are on the transmission, 230 kV. Excuse me. The third thing, the bucket of activities that I focus on is economic development, specifically Cherry Point. And I do spend a lot of time on there. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where you meet with a lot of people, you try to encourage developers to do things and try and make it easier for them. And then they either do or don't do it. And so far, it has been a non-starter. And I think that when you look at development in Cherry Point long-term, that leads to building power supply systems out there that don't exist today, which would border the reservation on the north end and kind of head towards some of the things that you're talking about. The other thing is that we'd have a very strong transmission system in there, so it would be something that we could grow and branch from. So I think that's important. And then the fourth thing is broadband. And I really think that the system that we have in place, which is to go ahead and we know how to win the grants now. Andrew has shown he can do that. He can write the grants. We can win grants.
You hear that, Andrew?
It's demonstrated ability. And, I really think that what we need to do there is just continue to do that. And there's a number of things where we can require less involvement of other players, particularly the county. We've got ways to get co-funding that don't include them makes it a lot easier. And yes, I agree, there's probably some fatigue. So my suggestion is that we continue to keep the BEAD money, especially on the hit parade, and go after that. That builds out our dark fiber, which builds out our dark fiber revenue, which then allows us to be able to bootstrap that up. Today, we don't have a revenue stream. Getting that dark fiber built and leased under grants is the way to begin generating a significant revenue stream. We're just not there today. We will be there. So that's one of the ones where I look at it, I would recommend it be the fourth bucket, not unimportant. And these are not priorities, these are ranks. Priority means first, and there can only be one first. And I really think that we need to focus on the existing utility as the first order of business. These other things we need to spend time on as available, but I would recommend ranking them that way. So again, it's the utility, it's power supply, it's economic development, and it's broadband, and kind of put everything in those four buckets and rank it out that way.
I think that makes sense. I would just say related to power supply, I guess I was honestly surprised that neither of you ranked kind of carbon-free energy supply
Me too.
locally up there. When you think about our financial health, I mean, this is totally separate from the fact that, you know, we could supply a significant amount of Whatcom County's energy supply locally, which, you know, would give us a huge amount of strength, especially as a publicly funded project. Maybe we could even lower rates here. You think about if we built a 50 megawatt geothermal facility, even at only 5 cents a kilowatt hour, that's $15 million of revenue a year. We would pay off the capital costs really quickly. And that's not even accounting for, you know, grants. There's a huge amount of federal funding right now exactly for projects like this, for transmission, so like Chris said, I mean, when you think about the really long-term vision for this organization, having a revenue stream like that allows us to do all kinds of things like fix Grandview, like Chelan has been able to do so much on broadband because they're okay subsidizing broadband, you know?
And by the way, I just want to say that me not listing it is because you listed it
3 times.
I was just trying to cover some other bases. And I just want to say that it's probably helpful to explain that me as a person, you know, I'm at a different point in my life and my career, and I've been an entrepreneur. Someday I'm still considering some ideas. But my point is that I've absolutely put all my money on red number 5. Sometimes that's been successful. I'm making an analogy to the game roulette. Not that I gamble.
Why'd you look at me for that?
I think our attorney knows that I don't gamble. So I am going to a casino in a few days. So anyway, I won't be calling you Chris to wire me some money to. So no, my point is that I understand and I love risk, but I feel like I'm wearing a different hat here at the PUD. And I feel like I also have to recognize the fact that with all speculative efforts, there's significant risk. And I would say that this is speculative. I absolutely don't want to abandon the effort. I would put it as, if I hadn't heard from the two of you, I would put foster water as an item. I would put a geothermal as an item, and I would put broadband and a protracted long-term effort in broadband as an item too. So those would be the 3 that I put in the absence of anything to. But since you both talked about those things, I didn't.
I also want to say that the reason why I didn't talk about energy is because I feel like sitting next to 2 people that have sort of a background in energy, that we do talk about it a lot. And I feel protective of water because I think it's one of the most it's one of the most important things that we're facing in this moment. And I don't know that it receives priority attention from the commission all the time. People are not as interested in going to water board meetings. They're not as interested in attending water meetings for Waputa. And so I like it, that reflects my concern for like our interest in water in Whatcom County. Not that I'm not super interested in, you know, a geothermal project, because I am. I just wanted to give like big voice, like you wanted to give big voice to your priority.
Well, and I'm glad, I mean, I think that we all kind of having different skill sets as commissioners, you know, that's good, right? We, you know, because it's hard to go really deep all the time on every kind of move the needle. So I actually does sort of seem like we're coalescing around 3 kind of key buckets. I mean, do you feel that way? The most important thing is that what we're saying is clear to you. And it actually seems like your buckets, I mean, align with ours. This is why a facilitator, I think, would be useful in some ways with this strategic stuff, because it's hard to
It
not
is.
to, you know.
It is hard.
Um,
And in my past life, if you're with an organization that's big enough to have departments, I mean, full-blown staffs pointed at specific issues, you can spread yourself a lot thinner. And in other organizations that I've worked that are very, very small, kind of singular focus is how you get things done. And so I don't think either one is right. And I think that what we need is some ranking. So that, you know, I know where to devote percentages of the staff. I know when I make hires exactly what kind of profile I'm looking for. And that would be very helpful. Lacking that input, I'm perfectly willing to move ahead and make the choices. But, you know, then it's kind of well, you know, are you guys going to get what you want? And I try and do what you want me to do. I have to know that. So
Can I give it a shot to name 3 things?
Sure.
So in order, even those 3 things in order. Number 1, settlement / foster. Number 2, geothermal / grid. And number 3, and this is the prioritization we're telling Chris and Annette and everybody at the commission. Number 3 is broadband policy.
and like continuing grant, it's like finance, policy and
Policy,
finance.
finance, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
For
I mean,
broad,
and
maybe
when I
I
say
should say
finance-
broadband program.
yeah, broadband program, yeah, which is
So
grant.
I would suggest on the second one, that you not limit us to one particular form of carbon-free energy. Simply because that looks great today, 18 months from now, we could have a radical
This
change.
is the priority for the next 18. We'll revisit it, Chris. I mean, like we may get some bad news on one front and then, you know, there may be something else. This is.
Right.
It's
let's
certainly
recognize
priority
that.
for the budget year,
Yeah.
right?
I think for the next budget year, saying geothermal / and when I hear grid, I also think of like, yeah, everything from transmission to, and also I agree with the Lummi Nation and the Lummi Peninsula. I mean, the other thing is that when we think about this geothermal project, I really think we need to be looking seriously at pursuing tribal partnerships in the development of the project. And we can talk about that more later.
We will. That is on the agenda
Okay.
for our closed session.
Okay, so I feel comfortable with that prioritization for right now for the budget purposes. Do you-
Yeah, so do I.
The only topic I really heard missing was running a utility.
Right, which is what I said in the very beginning, like prioritizing.
If you're looking at
that.
ranking everything that was discussed,
Yeah,
that
for
you,
sure.
that wasn't,
Yeah,
bring you back.
we've got
That was-
to have that as,
Yeah,
and it does,
And that gets back to your 4 buckets,
right.
which is that's your first one.
that's
And
the
I
first
think
bucket
that,
and these are the next.
I think that we often take that for granted, which is not good. But I think because often as policymakers, we're it's a future focused endeavor that
Right.
we're focused on where the organization is transforming. But yeah, we can't forget about that first bucket.
But if we're looking at ranking in terms of informing the budget and informing staff on where they need to emphasize efforts, then it is a material item, not
And I
just forward.
assume that the vast majority of the budget is going to be focused on maintaining the current utility
That's correct.
structure. So, you know.
For that reason, I didn't want,
Yeah.
I wanted you to think about it,
Yeah.
whether it's on or off your listing.
Yeah. Although you will see loaded into the budget some prospective grant information on geothermal type grants. So I'm anticipating that for next year. May or may not happen. There's a million things that could play into it, but if it's not next year, it's probably the year after.
Your third bucket was interesting to me, just because I
The
don't think
economic
it's,
development.
yeah, I don't think it's called out in the strategic plan. Like, I don't think, like, specifically called out, although a lot of these items of like are economic
A little bit,
development
that's-
items,
yeah.
right? It's not, and just something to think about for
Yeah,
planning in the
and just
future.
long term, the only way to really avoid single customer risk is either to find a way to subsidize the utility.
Right.
Right, and then you don't have to worry about single customer risk, which is Chelan's ultimate answer. Or you get more customers, so you don't have to worry about single customer risk. And we have about 3 or 4 customers that are, I don't know, 60-70% of our revenue. And that's a significant risk. You lose one of those and we got a problem. You lose 2 of them and we got a crisis.
And they're risky customers, frankly,
yeah.
because of the pressure to decarbonize.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, think of it. 2 of them are refineries, and then the third is a power plant that burns natural gas. So
Yeah.
those are our top 3 customers on the water side. And our top customer, our only customer on the electric side is one of those 3.
And water supply is risky too. So
Yes, it is.
it's all risky.
When you think about the future of anything humans do, there's risk involved. I mean, you can't get away from that.
Is this helpful feedback?
I think so. I do think we need to formalize it, and I'm not sure what the next step would be on that. It sounds like maybe we should get a consultant on board. I met the fellow that you recommended,
Gary.
Gary, thank you. And I should remember that because of an old friend of mine in California, spelled Gary the same way, Gary. And but anyway, he seems like a really nice guy. He's local. His background seems like it might be helpful.
I haven't met with him in person. I chatted with him on the phone. I was gonna bring this up in my commissioner report. I'm having a meeting with him on Wednesday. I could suggest that he reach out to the 2
Yes,
of you
yes,
too,
please, yeah.
so we could all get to know him. I know John had another idea. I don't know how much, like, it's a lot of work to like interview different consultants and stuff like that, but I mean, if we both get a good feeling from this guy Gary, then maybe he could help. He is low. It seems like he could pop in quickly. Like, it's not like something where we'd have to book him out like 6 months in advance.
Well, and then the other thing is just pricing.
Yeah.
I mean, you may, because he is local, the total cost of the engagement might be very, very small, relatively speaking,
Mhm.
and it might not require a competitive bid.
Okay. Well, I can shoot him. Actually, do you, well, when I talk to him on Wednesday, I'll suggest that he reach out to the 2 of you.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And I
make,
think
make
he-
your, make your read first.
Oh, right, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
if you feel like it's good.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, so maybe we continue this. This is kind of initial feedback, and then we can, the budget process doesn't end until.
Oh, gosh.
And if you want.
First meeting in
formal
December, yeah.
draft of addendum to the strategic plan of arrangement, so have that adopted. It's gonna be-
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was thinking that ideally it'd be good for now, you heard from us and you can listen to the recording. Kind of, I mean, I made an attempt at, but you have to take some other operational issues into consideration, mission. So with that, if you can come back to us with something, some language that we can adopt at a future commission meeting.
I can do that. Or at least get you to discuss it.
Yeah.
Because it may engender more discussion, but you may
Yeah.
say, yeah, okay, that's good for interim.
Sure, sure.
That's your call.
Sure.
I can bring that for our next meeting.
Okay, so should we move on to the operations report?
Yes.
Okay, operations report, is that Brian?
It is.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I have a few items here I'll move through quickly, but first is on capital projects front. We mentioned this before, but both the rooftop solar project and sediment ponds cleaning have been completed successfully. and under budget, on budget. As far as the solar project, we do have real-time digital readout now. And the IT department is looking at how to take that digital output and do a link to our public website. So, you know, for general public interest, you can see real time what the output of that solar project is. So stay
And the
tuned on
intent would
that.
be- Yeah, the intent would be a photograph on Facebook directing to our website. So they can take a look at how the thing's doing every day.
So and on the operations and maintenance
We can add
front,
that to the geothermal plant too. Same thing. We should have a picture showing how many megawatts.
We will.
Okay, all right.
The day it goes live.
Yeah. Few other things to sort out.
Okay, a few other things to get that before that.
Yeah, that's back to that ranking thing. There's a few things in front of it.
Okay.
and on the maintenance front, we just had divers complete a project at Water Plant 1. They've completed cleaning out the intake, the sediment that's accumulated over the years in the intake, right on the inside of the fish screens where the materials build up. And it was a significant amount of material, far more than we expected to be in there. So it's obviously been building up over years, and just we haven't been able to see it, haven't been able to successfully clean it out in the past. But thanks to the efforts of Kurt and Garrett and a project we recently completed, we ran this water pipe under Ferndale Road. And so as the divers were scouring out that area, we pumped that sediment, that slurry, if you will, across the street into our pond on the west side of Ferndale Road. So that worked very well. That system's in place now, so we anticipate we'll be doing this on an annual basis. We were going to have the divers move on to Water Plant 2 and do a similar exercise, cleaning off the screens and that intake area. But Mother Nature didn't cooperate. And so we've had to have them hold up, and we'll try to schedule them later. They were going to get in there right away, but with this recent rain event, the turbidity of the river just skyrocketed. I looked this morning, and at Plant 2, the NTUs were over 1,000. And at Plant 1, they're around 1,200. So it's a significant amount of sediment in the river right now. We'll try to get those divers back when things settle down. But that amount of sediment load is just another indication of why we spend so much money on chemicals. We're using a lot right now. The other thing I'll mention that's significant, at least to some of us here, is that the end of this week is the end of the Bonneville 2-year rate period. So we'll be starting a new rate period October 1st. And a couple of items to note. One is that's when we get our budget for energy efficiency projects replenished. We anticipate upwards of $500,000 at our disposal for that. The other thing is, in line with the new 2028 contract, power supply contract will be signed with Bonneville. This past fiscal year 23, is the period that's used as the baseline for our allocation to Tier 1 power starting in 2028. So Bonneville, at the end of this month, we'll be looking at all the utility customers' energy totals for the year, purchases from Bonneville. And that becomes the baseline for our Tier 1 allocation. There will be adjustments to that baseline, and that'll play out over the next year or so. But it looks right now, and I think I mentioned this before, but we're, as of the end of this month, we'll probably be a little bit short of what we are allocated for the current contract. So we're more than the 26 average megawatt range rather than 27.3 like we are currently. There may be some room for negotiating that amount up, but it's unclear how that'll play out right now. The only other thing I'll mention is that would like at the next commission meeting to have a little bit more deeper dive into some of the projects that were undertaken this year, and probably have Kurt present a little picture show on some of the projects and show them at various stages of completion. Give you a little bit of better idea of what we do during these summer months. With that, I'll stop, see if there's any questions.
Sorry. Any other questions?
No questions for me. Thanks, Brian.
So, my question is, may seem strange, but it's, what we experience in terms of sediment from the river is, I wonder how much it's a useful observation towards the understanding of the river and how it's behaving year over year. And, I don't know how much we get requests from people who monitor the river, with the ecological bent or a climate change bent. And I wonder if we've had requests for information, and if we maintain data that, since we're doing it anyway, it might be beneficial for us to see if there's people who would benefit from what we understand about the river by way of sediment. So that's just an observation.
So if I may, since I've been here, and Brian, you clearly have lots longer on this, and so does Rebecca. When people talk about measurements in the river, they're really not focused on that. They're just temperature and flow in most cases, and how that varies over time. When we look at the sediment that's coming in, sometimes it's runoff from ag lands, sometimes it's glacial talc. And those are very, very different phenomenon at root. And to the best of my knowledge, nobody looks at that. And I guess at this point, is Rebecca on? She is. I don't know, Rebecca, if you've seen any grant requests or people being interested in that in the last 20 years or not. And Cyan confirms we've never had a public request.
Hi.
Really.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. No, we've never done any kind of grant to do research on what we take out of the river. And as far as I know, we did allow several years ago for the Lummi. They wanted to do some monitoring for plant 1, but they only did that for a few years. But we've never had any requests to do any kind of research on what comes out of the river, because we're not required to have anything other than, and Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, but we do track the amount of we do flocculation, which is taking out the heavy debris. We don't do any kind of water quality testing at all at this point.
Well, we do test for fecal bacteria now.
Right. Well,
2
yeah.
locations once a month, but that's about it as far
Yep.
as I know.
Yeah.
And the sediment that's in the river is kind of a fingerprint of what's going on upstream, but I don't know. I just don't know what we do with that data, but so it
Just
sounds
curious.
like nobody's ever asked.
All right.
So
We
good
will
question.
be getting
Yeah.
data from the LiDAR HEC-REC on the contours of the river
Mhm.
through what the HDR work is going to be looking at an in-stream flow. And that could very well, over long term, to loop this back to the adjudication discussion. And if you have an adaptive management solution to address in-stream flows and water usage out of related to the river, that kind of data collection and observations over time, because that can affect fish and in-stream flows, will be important over time.
Well, I don't know if like glacial talc, for instance, is that critical for the roe or the juveniles? I mean, I have no idea. That might be incredibly beneficial to them. They in fact evolved to, or not. It may have nothing to do with them. It may interfere. I don't know. Just don't know enough.
Yeah, if I can add, you're correct in what everybody's saying. There's been no coordinated effort to look at river dynamics. As Rebecca said, we have had the Lummies with measuring equipment at Water Plant 1. We've accommodated their needs there. Department of Ecology is monitoring at our old BP intake site currently. And we gave them permission to use our site, but it's not, you know, they're measuring different things. Nobody's really looking at sediment. And it's
Yeah, at
that
the
flow has changed significantly over the years.
yeah, the site that the state has, they're looking just at temperature and flow.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for entertaining me. I appreciate it. Yeah. Entertaining the conversations. I've got nothing else.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
So should we move on to commission reports?
Sure,
No, I can go first.
sure.
I may rifle through some papers because they hand out stuff at Waputa meetings. And there was a presentation from DOE on geothermal. So just so I brought that back to hand off. So there's 3 items. One is just a quick update. I did finally get a meeting with Mayor Ferndale Greg Hansen. You know, I got technical pretty quickly, and so he suggested I meet up with his operations manager. So I will be doing that over the next few weeks. Suffice it to say that I don't know. I mean, it's just something I'm doing out of curiosity. If there's something that is that turns out of that's of benefit to the PD and the commission, then I'll follow up. But there's, you know, as occurred to me over the years, many potential synergies. Of course, we do work with the city of Ferndale, but just exploring a little bit, digging a little bit deeper, and seeing what kinds of possibilities there might be on that front. So the other thing is that quick update is I've had a conversation that was spurned by one of the Waputa meetings last week. The government relations meeting. In that meeting, it came up that Waputa is looking for a enhanced relationship with the legislature by way of covering the 4 corners of the state and getting more legislators connected to Waputa policy priorities. I think both of you suggested that Waputa reach out to Joe Timmons. And I did too in the room. I was in the room. I said the same thing. It's funny. And then I since then I've followed up with Joe Timmons and his staff, and Chris, you set up a meeting with Joe to come and have a tour. Representative Timmons to have a tour here at the PD. And what's that date?
I'll have to look it up. I believe it's November 9th.
I think so too, and I think it's in the afternoon at 2
to 3:30.
2 to 3:30, and certainly, if that works for you all to on your calendar, as well.
Well, I would suggest if more than one commissioner shows up, we would give public notice of the
notice it,
meeting. And that would be a problem. Because we're going to be taking Representative Timmons into the water plant itself.
I already know I can't make that date, so.
Okay,
I don't know what the date was, but I'm comfortable having.
Okay.
You could. Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So that's great to, and you know, it's great that he's interested, and it's great that we're doing this and playing a role to help Waputa. I've got a bigger item, so if you will entertain me for a moment, I've have had I attended the NOAANET presentation in the telecom committee, and NOAANET made what I would call a soft proposal. What I mean by soft proposal, they talked about the idea of proposing something, but they didn't get very specific. And since then, I had a follow up with Chris from NOAANET. What's his last name? Chris Walker. I was gonna say Chris Mitchell, but no, that's different. See, kind of for local supply. So, Chris Walker. And I asked him, what should I come back to the commission? What do you want to hear from the commission on the subject of what NOAANET is proposing to do is, in some capacity, to work in a collaborative manner with all the PUDs in Washington State to maximize the amount of public benefit that the state gets from BEAD funding, which is federal funding. And so really, he wanted to hear from the commission the answer to two questions. And I've already discussed these with Chris, with our general manager, Chris. First is, will BEAD even help Whatcom County? And I think we've had enough conversations about that. Chris, you told me without any doubt that yes, we absolutely want to benefit from BEAD, and we believe it will help Whatcom County with, or actually, then this is with or without knowing that's engagement and involvement.
Well, without for sure, with, I don't know.
Okay, so, the other set of questions are really gets into the, what is the benefit of collaborating with NONET? So the first thing, he wants to know what are our, and he wants to know this regardless of however we collaborate with NONET, what are our foundational principles? Do we believe in the idea of public broadband and providing broadband, helping to provide broadband for all? And I told Chris that yes, we do, of course, it's in our mission statement on broadband. Then it gets into more complex matters. How much risk are we willing to take on the subject of providing? And for us, that's financial risk, right? So to expand the amount of public infrastructure. And do we believe that the federal funds that are being provided should stay in the public trust? And I'm speaking for myself. I believe that. And I think when we talk about the interlocal agreements and the priorities for Chris on the interlocal agreement, not the interlocal, the IOU, sorry. The agreement between IRU, between us and the telecom provider in our Point Roberts arrangement as well. The thing that we said at that time was that we wanted to retain public ownership of the infrastructure. So I think,
And we will.
and we will.
And that's in fact the master lease agreement that John talked about earlier. You know, that's all we would be doing is leasing the use of the facilities to a third party, not
Yeah.
transferring ownership.
There's a third point where I think there's appears to be a difference between what NOAANET is advocating for and what our PUD has decided to date. And that is, we both, NOAANET and the Whatcom PUD and the Port of Bellingham all embrace open access model. We all of us do. The difference is Whatcom PUD and the Port of Bellingham have embraced a dark fiber open access model. And NOAANET is advocating to us actually, and to everybody, for a lit fiber open access model. And what's the difference? The difference is the actual fiber lines are the same. But in a lit fiber model, the public also owns the hardware that lights up the fiber. And to summarize, what Chris believes is that, can it really even be open access if you're relying on the private sector to make the fiber functional by way of lighting? Because if it's not lit, it's not functional. Nobody can use it. No customer can benefit from it. It ultimately has to be lit. So this is a topic that I don't want to resolve today, but I think it's a topic that as a commission, we need to, I would like to ask the commission that it's something that we should discuss in more detail at a future time.
So can I just add a couple of things?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why we advocated dark fiber is because we don't have to maintain the hardware at both ends of the fiber then as the technologies continue to upgrade.
Yeah,
As
every
you
5
go
years or so.
Every 5 to 10 years, yeah, and you've got to do that. The second thing is you need to go to a co-location or a meet me location where NOAANET has lit fiber. And I believe in our county, it's right down on C Street in Bellingham. So we'd have to have some way to get there. And you know, there's a problem there. We'd need to tie everything back to that. The third thing is that I think, and this is strictly an opinion at this point, what NOAANET is proposing is essentially to stand between the state and the counties in terms of allocation of the BEAD money. And I think for those counties especially that don't have any kind of staff pointed at this, think the very small rural counties where, they're looking at the BEAD money going, how do I even apply? For them, it's perfect. It provides an agency that'll, manage the grant for them. They've got the ability to, and it's largely greenfield, so they can build fiber out, and they've got connectivity in the county. It's perfect.
And it keeps federal money going to the private sector directly,
Yeah.
for example, which is what we don't want.
And here, I think that to have a third party who would stand between us and the state, and they may or may not allocate the money the way we want it to. And we have the ability between us and the board, I think, to not to put too fine a point on it, hoover up as much money as is going to be available out of BEAD. I mean, we got the ability to do that. We can submit enough grants that we can get, kind of the maximum the state's willing to send to Whatcom.
So is no one trying to get us to work with them again? They're trying, he was trying to sell you on us working with them.
I think he values he knows that Whatcom PD has invested energy. It's not a hard sell in any way.
Okay.
It's he wants our input no matter.
They're trying to find a role where they can really help. And,
Yeah.
and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no,
And probably his biggest sell is to, as Chris suggested, PUDs who haven't invested,
who
And-
haven't,
who have not invested.
They've got no staff, they've got no
Right.
capacity.
which is why we used them before we had Andrew.
Right,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So just some things to think about.
I'm delighted that they're taking a step forward. Hopefully, providing more public options.
Yeah.
Whether that's, I am not in any way sold at that greater environment from no one is it good or bad for Whatcom. I'm thinking about our resources too, of course, our staffing, our resources, and how many directions do we, how do we maintain this long protracted planning exercise means long and program requires multiple actions over a long period of time, and maybe no one could help be a force multiplier for us in that regard. So,
I'm delighted that we have staff on board that
yes.
have such deep broadband expertise. I would say we are in a much better place than we were when we were relying on knowing it. Not that, they were able to jump in and help us in our time of need, but I think we're, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. Okay, I'm done.
There's a thing in the Q&A.
It's
Popped up.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah.
So for those who can't
Yeah,
see
right.
this,
Thanks for
Aaron was
reading.
pointing out that there are historical turbidity measurements at a couple locations in the Nooksack.
It's good to know.
Okay, sure. So I also attended Wakuda's meetings, but online, so I'm not gonna go over the same exact things that
Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Deshmani did. I will say though, the geothermal education piece on Wednesday was really great, and I think you can also find the documents online at the
Yes.
Wakuda
Yeah,
website.
it's on the website.
It was really helpful for me because we talk about it a lot. And it was a pretty thorough presentation because I don't know that much about geothermal, so that was really helpful. I also attended the board meeting, just high level. We do have a new executive director at Wakuda. They've hired Liz Anderson for that position. So that's great. Congrats to Liz. And then the last, I have no upcoming per diem requests. So that's it for me.
Thanks. So Chris and I had a number of meetings related to energy supply. Also shot an email off to Joe Timmons, Representative Timmons, specifically about our challenges at Grandview and the two other smaller water systems, and just said, Grandview employs 406 people. Is there any, what other federal or state funding might there be for this? Have not heard back from him yet, but I also know he doesn't have a legislative assistant right now. But that email's out the door, and maybe we can just ping him again, and
Okay.
perhaps something we can talk about too. On his November 9th tour.
Yeah.
Maybe you can even take him up to Grandview.
That might happen.
You
We've
can
only got
show him the duct
but
tape
then-
and bubble gum.
Yep.
And then, like I said, so for upcoming per diems, I'm gonna have an in-person meeting with this guy, Gary. I don't remember his last name, but I'm having a meeting with him to talk about this sort of strategic planning, executive coaching, organizational development stuff that we talked about 2 meetings ago. And like I said, we'll make sure he has your contact information if I feel like that's a good use of everyone's time. I'm also actually going to be having a meeting with Andrew. Chris is going to be out of town, but with PNNL. So maybe it's with the same guy.
Oh, what date did you settle on that?
We're still playing the calendar game, but I think it's going to be the week you're on vacation.
That's next week.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because this week didn't work for them.
Yeah.
And then a meeting with Deborah, Representative Lovelet, who just returned, and Deborah Lekanoff, to talk about some of these energy supply issues. They were not able to join the meeting that Chris and I had. So just those are the 3 things that I'm doing between the.
But why?
What?
Why did they not attend our meeting?
Why?
Yeah, because they were flying back from Iceland after looking at a geothermal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's so interesting, the buzz too.
Mhm. So, yeah, those are my 3 upcoming per diem requests. And yeah, that's it.
Great. Request approved.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there was one item that I forgot to mention. That's applicable to all 3 of us as the commissioners. In the government relations meeting, Liz Anderson talked about communication of PUDs in the advocacy capacities.
Right.
And that there's maybe some new doorways open now. Because of the actions of the Attorney General in advocating for some policies that were some legislation actually that were requested by the Attorney General's office in the last session. And there was, it raised some eyebrows because it seemed like the Attorney General's office was actually advocating for some policy, which, you're not supposed to do as an agency. But it went to the CDC.
No. PDC.
PDC.
Yeah. Safe controlled okay.
Okay, thank you.
Public disclosure.
I was following until right then and then.
You almost got it.
The Public Disclosure Commission. And they found no issue with it. So now Liz Anderson has written a guideline for commissioners that and it was draft, and I think it's going to be going out soon for all of us. And here's a memo from Bill Clark to Liz Anderson on the same subject. I can leave here. Feel free to take a look. You've seen it, yeah, you saw it, okay. And basically, I would like input from John on this. Because there's things that we as a commission support policy wise at the state legislature, and we want to know how we can
Pass a resolution.
yeah. Well, that's what we did before.
That's what you want to support legislation.
So if we're specifically lobbying for a bill, we need to pass a resolution.
Which that's what we've done
The best
before.
thing to do is to pass a resolution so you can hand out and speak to it, so you can communicate this as the commission's position
Right.
on this matter. Otherwise, you're down there as Commissioner Grant advocating the position of the Commissioner Grant. So you want to have the commission take a formal position.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
But I'm
you-
just wondering, does this change anything for us from your perspective?
The AG's office, that's the extent I'm familiar with this, it's the AG's office, which is unique, and he's a candidate. Presumed candidate.
So you're saying we shouldn't read too much into,
I wouldn't go too far. I'll take a look at this, educate myself, but generally, the rule is you take the action as a commission, then you can speak to the.
that was handed out at the Government Relations Committee. That's from Bill Clark. That was Anderson.
So if we're going to the legislative session, if we go and are testifying in support or going and lobbying, we should be sort of unified in our,
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
okay.
So. I'm reading the first page, so here's what I would say, maybe I'll say this, but you are allowed to directly lobby local elected officials. So you can lobby them on a matter in this. You pass a resolution, go down there, talk to them. But you're not allowed to just indirectly lobby the legislature by generating public support for it. So you can't rally troops to go down, here's the district, we're gonna sponsor a forum, we're gonna get people on buses and go down and lobby for geothermal.
Or even write a letter to the editor saying you ought to go down there with torches and pitchforks and,
Yeah.
you just don't do that.
So you can't, the phrase is generating public,
Like we were planning to do. Like we always do.
generating public support for it. So you wanted to have a position known, we used to do this at Blaine, we would. Jamie might remember, we would have a forum at a council meeting, says we'll give 5 minutes to the advocate, 5 minutes to the opponents. And usually 5 minutes on one side came up, and then we split up on the other, and the district would pass. And that's specifically when you're talking about specific ballot measures that are pending. If you wanted to take a position on something, that's how we would approach it. But if you're talking about going to the legislature on a pending bill, we would pass a resolution. And then you can communicate resolutions.
Which we've done in the past. We
Yes.
did that
Yeah, that's
for
what we
the public broadband bill, and I think that's actually the only one we've done.
I
But
think we did it on 1792 as well.
yeah, okay. Okay. It doesn't sound, thank you for updating us.
I'll have to look at this. I mean, this is brand new. I hadn't seen this, so
Yeah,
we're talking about grassroots lobbying.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
we'll
well,
revisit it if there's a change. I mean,
yeah, we can always contact the
See,
CDC.
the difference here is, the difference here is
Thank you.
you're clearly allowed to lobby the legislature. There is no statute that defines what action the agency may take to inform the public of its legislative actions without violating the prohibitions against grassroots lobbying. So, we're gonna get really in the weeds when we talk about use of social media. It's the dangers of social media. Is that, okay, when are you generating the masses to go down with pitchforks or marshmallows or whatever it is, you go advocate or oppose some measure versus you just directly yourself lobby. So you can't foster the mobilization of the public's view, but you can disseminate your viewpoint.
Mhm.
And that's the trick of social media. When are we disseminating viewpoints versus developing the masses?
It
It's
doesn't
nice
seem
that-
like we've done anything close to that
Yeah,
ever, so.
But I'm just saying what this is about, where the trick is.
Where you could follow this is, okay, we support 1792, which is a proposed bill in the legislature. We've written a letter to the editor and then.
Here's the
on-
letter.
And here's the letter. I think that's okay. If, on the other hand, somewhere in the letter you say, and if you wish to join us, go talk to your representative and that would be over the line.
Worse is there's a hearing on this on Wednesday at 1:30. If you want to testify in support, we'd appreciate you contact, Chris Heimgartner about locations and where, and we can help organize your attendance in favor of this.
That's across the line.
That's way across.
Okay.
What I described was slightly across the line.
Yeah, more gray.
More gray,
Great.
but I didn't go as far as pitchforks and torches.
Oh, marshmallows.
Yeah, what
which I prefer.
I'm trying to get something solid.
Because of the people with the torches are
Sure.
wave one, then after the torches, then you need the
Okay.
marshmallows.
All right, should we move on to public
Yes.
comment, everybody? We're gonna, yeah.
trying to come up with something other than George.
No.
I keep bringing us back to that.
Now,
though.
now I know what to bring John for.
Okay, great. So let's move on to public comment.
I see no hands.
I don't see any hands. So let's take a quick break. And then we're gonna go into executive session. I just want to clarify to the public that, Chris, you mentioned that we're gonna be discussing some electric infrastructure as well. On the agenda, it says potential litigation on water rights, RCW 40.30.110, and then also qualifications of public employee, but there's a third item is what I'm just clarifying.
Well, under my performance,
Okay,
there's a whole list of things I want to update you guys.
okay,
And also, there's potential litigation will go beyond water rates. There'll be other general matters. It's probably involved that too.
okay, good. I just want to clarify for the public. Okay. And then we're not anticipating any action, and then we will come out of executive session and adjourn shortly thereafter.
Probably about an hour and a half total. I'm not sure how it's gonna be allocated.
Might be faster.
Might be
We'll see,
faster.
yeah.
I've got a list of things that I've developed.
Great. Thank you all.
10 minutes.
Sure.
Do you need to draft off me anymore?
No.
You can be like your Uber driver, but drafting. No, I have to head home. Also, you can leave. He can close the meeting if you need to get.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can go home.
Okay. Okay, oh, okay.
Okay, it's noon and we just emerged from executive session. There was no decisions taken. And go ahead and close the regular commission meeting for Tuesday, September 26th. Thank you.
Thanks.